Hello guys, welcome to Online Web Tutor presented by Profotech Sessions team. I am Sanjay. We are learning CodeIgniter version 3 HMVC tutorial for beginners. This is our part 10. Inside this video session guys, we will discuss about connectivity of multiple database connections to our module. So firstly, let's discuss about the case or the scenario actually we have to see inside this video. So open a new tab and let's say that this is our application folder. Inside this, as we know that we have a config folder and we have a file called database.php. Now let's say that inside this file I am to define our database 1, database 2 and so on. On these database connections, it means that it is a different database. Now inside this application folder, we have one more folder called modules. This is why because we are learning HMVC. Now inside this modules folder, let's say that we have module 1, we have module 2, now what basically we want and so on. So we want that the module 1 should connect with database 1 connectivity of this database.php. Module 2 will connect with this connection. So this is also we can implement as multiple database connections. Here we have multiple connections and we are connecting our modules according to our need. For a real-time project, we can understand that about school management system. Let's say that one database is made for student system and one database is made for teachers, all the faculty management. On the behalf of these sections, we have two modules called student as well as faculty. Now a student module will connect with the student database connection and the faculty will connect respective to its database connection. So how can we understand about multiple database connections at an HMVC pattern? So back to our code editor. Now firstly, let's make about multiple connections at our file called database.php. So open up application, config, and inside this we have a file called database.php. And also guys, we had actually discussed in the last video that database.php also you can make inside each of the module. Means each module will contain also a folder something called config. Inside this config, if you want to separate all the connections module wise, then you can just add. What basically I mean to say, so inside this what we have discussed simply, this is connected with db1 and this is module connected with db2. Now inside another case, let's say that if I copy all the cases, open a new tab and pasting all the things right here. Now let's say that this time I'm not going to define these database connections to this database.php file. Instead, I'm going to make inside each of the module, let's say config folder, as we know that we can make, and inside each config folder here, inside this module 2, also we have a config folder, and inside each of the config folder, let's say that we have a file called database.php. Now inside database.php here, it will connect, let's say that connection of, let's say db1. We had defined connection word inside this file. As we know inside here, right here, this is the master database.php file where we had defined all the connections and connected their modules respectively. But inside this case, actually I'm going to define all the database connections to different database files of each module. So this is for the database 1. If we go to the module 2, now here inside this config folder, we have a file called database.php and here we have a connection called connection and this is for the database 2. So inside this case also we have defined each respective database connection to each module, but inside this playlist we will define or we will see about this structured way. So back to code editor. Now this is the database.php file which is the master database file for this application. Now let's say that Right now inside this file only we have a default database connection which is pointing towards learn CI HMVC. Now inside this file I am to make two more connections. So firstly let's copy this DB array, and firstly let's say that learn CI HMVC. Now I'm going to make connection for this learn CI HMVC. Now instead of this default I'm to make the connection name, let's say that HMVC. This is all about our connection name. Again, if I copy, and let's say that this time this is for learn CodeIgniter. This is our database name, and pasting it here. Now instead of this HMVC object, I'm to make simple CI here. Now if I back to browser, go to our localhost pgmyadmin. Now inside this learn we have called learn CodeIgniter. So if I copy the DB name, back to file and pasting right here. Now inside this database.php we have now connection of three different databases. This is for the first learn CodeIgniter, this is for the learn HMVC. Now let's say that we are going to make two modules, and these two modules basically point to these databases. So how can we make connectivity? If I collapse this config folder, go to modules folder, and firstly let's say that we are going to use this HMVC object inside this sign up module. So if I open about sign up controller, and inside this, as what we had done inside last video, that we had used about the default database connection. Now for this module we are going to use called HMVC or learn CI HMVC database. So for that let's say that we are going to use this object. So copy the connection name, and here we are going to use that. So this load database, and this is all about the connection name, and the second parameter I am to pass the true value, and at the top let's define a private variable. So this should be something private, or let's say public variable. So public, this is HMVC, simply object. Now I am to initialize this object with the database connection with the connection name called HMVC. Inside last video what we had seen, we have saved our value to our database table, but at that time we had used called this DB. Now as we know that learn CI HMVC, we are pointing by the help of this HMVC object. This HMVC object we have created at the top header, as we can see that. So if I copy this connection object back here and all pasting right here. Now if I back to our browser to check this connection, and let's say that index.php sign up user, and if I open our database table, so this is learn CI HMVC, open a new tab. So right now inside our table we have 3 students. So let's say that one more registration, choose designation about web developer, submit, and here something wrong here, and if I press submit, now user registered successfully. So back to our table, reload this page. Now inside this table, as we can see that we have now one more entry. It means that the first connection object working fine. Also let's make one more method inside the sign up controller. So this is public function, let's say get all users. Now inside this method we are going to select all the users what basically we have registered using sign up module. So this HMVC, this is our connection variable object. So HMVC select, we are going to select all the values, all the columns. This HMVC, let's say from, and the table name we have called tbl_users. Copy that, pasting it here, this HMVC, and finally we are going to generate our query. and we are going to store inside this query variable. And finally, let's execute that. So result equal to query, and we have a result method. So let's dump all the data. So inside PHP tag, let's say print a, simply we are dumping all the data to our output screen. So we have to make a route. So go to config, copy, pasting it here. So sign up, let's say users hyphen list, and this will point to get all users. So copy this method and pasting it here. So if I copy this route name, back to browser, open a new tab, a duplicate tab, and replace this route name. So if I press enter, now these are the data actually we have saved to our database table. So this is all about our first database connection. Let's discuss about the second database connections what we have made inside this file called with the connection name called CI. So if I collapse this sign up module, let's say that we have a school module. Inside this school module, we have a controllers folder, models folder, and the views folder. Now inside this school, we have a school controller, and we are going to use the second database connection inside this controller. So first thing first, we need to make a public variable to access our object. So public, and let's say simply CI. Now inside this CI, we are going to initialize with the connection variable name. So this CI equal to this load database, and the first parameter we have to pass the connection name. So this is CI as the connection name, and the second, we are going to use more than one database connection, so we have to pass the true value. If I back to browser to check our tables inside our Learn CodeIgniter, now inside this Learn CodeIgniter we have called books and the migrations. So inside this books table we have 4 number of rows, and let's say that we are going to select all the data by the help of that made connection. Back to CodeIgniter, let's say that inside this we are going to make a method something called public function get all books, and inside this method let's say that this CI, because this is our connection object, equal to not equal to, so this is select all this CI from, and we have table called books, just confirming. So copy this table name, back to code, and pasting it here. Now next we are going to define a query variable equal to this CI, and let's say get, we have generated our query. Now finally we have to execute that. So result query and the result method. Now if I dump all the data to our output screen, so echo, let's say pre, and here let's say print a, and the result variable. So if I save all these changes, and also we have to make a route for that. So inside this school I'm to make one more folder, and this is config folder, and make a file something called routes.php. So inside this PHP tag, let's say route school, and let's say books list, and this will call actually our school controller, and inside this school controller we have a method called get all books. So copy and pasting it here. So if I save all these changes, copy this route, back to browser, and pasting, and as we can see that we are getting all the books what we have inside the second database connection. So inside this video session guys, we understood about how can we connect with the multiple database connections to our modules. If I back to slide, now all we have seen with the first scenario, let's see about how can we connect about this structure pattern. So go to CodeIgniter. Now inside this config folder, also I'm going to make a file and something called database.php, and also inside the second module called the signup, go to config and create a file called database.php. So inside this we have database connection, and inside this also we have database connection. So if I close all these routes, controllers, routes and the modules to see all these things clearly. So if I copy all the connection variables from this master database connection, close this file, and this is for the school module. So as we know that inside this school module we have only the CI connection, so get rid of all these things from here. Again copy this, go to our master database file, open that, copy all the contents and pasting inside this signup module. Remove this CI, go at the top and also remove all these things from here. Now as we can see that now also inside this master database connection I am to remove all these connections from here. Now as we know that we have separated each connection of this master file into separate two modules. This is all about our signup module and this is all about our school module. So just open all the respective modules controllers. So collapse this config, open up the controller called the school controller and also for the signup controller. Now inside this school controller, this CI automatically actually loads the database connection firstly from this file. If it didn't find any file with the name database.php or any connection variable inside this file, then it automatically loads the connection variable from our master file. So if we call about the school controller, this CI connection will find about the CI connection name and we have made that. So after getting this connection, it loads all the data from this database connection. So go to browser, reload this page. Now as we can see that we are getting the same data. Again, same for our controller called the signup, as we know that we have made or used called HMVC connection object, and inside this is our connection name. It also finds about the respective database.php file inside this module folder, and inside this module we have made our database.php file, and here we have defined about the connection variable name. So it automatically loads and do all the operations with this database. Back to browser, go here, and now as we can see that this is the method which is pointing and getting all the data to learn CI HMVC database. So if I reload this page, now as we can see that we are getting all the same data. So inside this video session guys, we understood about the multiple database connections in case of two scenarios. So in my suggestion, I strongly recommend that must use about using the master database connection concept. So inside this video session guys, if you went out, then please drop your comment. I will give my reply as soon as possible. So for this video session guys, thank you for watching and have a great day.